Hi, everyone. It says that I am live, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Hope everybody's having a good day so far. Here in Denver, Colorado, it is currently -2, but feels much colder than that. I was telling my mentor this morning, and my colleague Josie, who was here with us last week moderating the chat, that I feel for the Dolphins and the Chiefs tonight playing football, and how cold that is. Probably feel more for the Dolphins being from Miami. So some cold temps across the country. So I'm just gonna take a look. Steve, thanks for being here for class. I love that. That's very much what I see my lives as an opportunity for me to go more in depth to teach about the concepts that have changed my life and that I get to teach other men and women to help them change their own lives. So glad you're here. Erica, hi, glad to have you live. Jean, hello. See, Kelly's got his popcorn, got his podcast. He's ready. Thanks for being here, guys. And thanks for Fight Better Now. Yes, please like the video on your way in. Quantum Thoughts here, where it is evening time. Good evening to you. And David here from Alberta, Canada. So he just I'm being a wimp with it being cold here in Denver because it's -35 where David is. Rudy in the house. Evo, so nice to have you here. Very cold in Switzerland as well. So good to have you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to put the chat down so we can get started and get into things, as you guys know, or if it's your first live with me. How I do the lives is I go through and teach what I want to teach about, which today is about hypergamy. And then at the end of the live, I will look through the chat, see if anything pops out to me that would be constructive to answer a question or a comment. So if you have a question for me, it is best to save that for the end, knowing that I will look through those at the end and see what would be helpful to talk about based on our discussion today. As always, so Josie can't be here today. She is my colleague and a good friend of mine who moderated the chat last weekend. She can't be here today. She's with some clients, but please go check out her YouTube channel. She has a new YouTube channel that I'm very excited for her about. It's called Escape the Alternative Health Matrix. So if you haven't, go check that out. Take a look at her videos, subscribe to her channel if it speaks to you, and hopefully she'll be here with us on some future lives to moderate the chat. However, that being said, I don't have a moderator today. So please keep it respectful and clean in the chat. Healthy debate, of course, is welcome and a healthy thing for us to do. But please be respectful of each other, of me, and be open-minded. The best way to approach these lives is to be here to grow and learn and to see some different perspectives. And in order for us as humans to consider a different perspective, we need to be open-minded and curious and question our beliefs and our perspectives so we can maybe let something new in that empowers us and allows us to grow and learn in ourselves, in our lives, in our marriages and relationships. And that's what today my lives are really all about. Some fun things coming. I have had several requests that I take the audio of my live shows and even just some of the clips that I make from the live show to put onto Spotify or something similar, to have a podcast where people can just easily listen without necessarily needing to watch. So I am going to start uploading my show and other clips onto Spotify as a podcast. So stay tuned for that. As you guys know, my husband and I are going to do an interview this month. We've got some things that we're moving soon just within the Denver metro area. So we're trying to figure out within our busy schedules when we're going to do that, but that is coming. So I will have an interview with Adam, my husband, very soon. We're excited to do that. It was actually his idea. He brought it up and was like, I really want to do a video with you and share my side and my story for your audience. I'm also looking into doing a call-in live show where people can call in with their challenges and struggles within their marriage, and I can give them advice and support live in a call-in show. So I'm excited about that. I also have a happiness master course for women that I have been working on and just doing a recording of that and editing it. It's a 45-minute free course on happiness for women that will be a very, how do I want to say it? An easier video for men out there to share with their wives that really just addresses our unhappiness as women without getting into the details of what I talk about on my channel. So stay tuned for that. And then finally, I'm going to be posting on some other platforms to to get my message out there and also have some backup platforms. So currently, I am on X. I haven't, or formerly known as Twitter. Uh, I haven't posted a lot on there, but if you are on X or Twitter, whatever you like to call it, you can follow me there. And those are some updates, some housekeeping. So let's get into our topic now. So, what we're talking about today, let me get my notes here organized. We're talking about hypergamy today and how hypergamy is a trap. And so, why I want to talk about hypergamy. First, I guess, well, no, I'll get into the why I want to talk about it, is that it's very common in the comments of my videos. There's some very heartfelt comments of men sharing their experience. Women are starting to be a little, speak up a little more in the comments, which I think is great. And then I also notice a number of comments from men who are very angry and very much stuck in their anger and their hurt with women, which is understandable. And what I notice from the men who are really angry from kind of the red pill and manosphere space on YouTube is you hear some of these concepts like hypergamy, and they can get you very, very stuck in your anger and very stuck in your hurt. And so the definition that I like of hypergamy from Jordan Peterson is that hypergamy is women mating across and up social hierarchies. And what that generally means is that women marry up. And this is a very popular concept within the red pill community space on YouTube and other platforms. And the red pill community has a very, very nuanced um, uh, view on hypergamy, and there's lots of nuances and different aspects of which they talk about hypergamy, and that's not what I'm going to get into today. It's I'm not going to attempt to explain or understand all those different nuances. I want to really look at is when we look at ideologies in our life, different sets of beliefs that shape our perspective of our understanding of life, our understanding of relationships, our understanding of men and women. I have been taught, and what I teach others and what I want to teach you today and offering you another perspective is looking like at an ideology like hypergamy and seeing, is it a supportive ideology, meaning one that empowers our perspective on life and relationships? Or is it an unsupportive ideology that keeps us trapped in being a victim, keeps us trapped in our anger, and disempowers us in life? That's what I really want to look at, because how I see hypergamy, and I am going to also explain my perspective as a woman and having worked with hundreds of women, been friends with many women, have lots of family members who are women. And in a study that I came across, I want to share a different perspective other than hypergamy of what's really happening, of how women choose men. And then I'm going to get into what women need to know about this and what we need to understand actually in our unhappiness and then our pursuit of happiness. So that's where we're going. But I see hypergamy as a non-supportive ideology, meaning one that keeps us trapped in being a victim and angry because there's no solution. The different things that I have seen about hypergamy within the red pill community really paints a picture of this is just how women are, guys, and there's nothing you can do about it, which is disempowering. And so we have to take a look at that, because really the foundation of everything that I teach is looking at, does it fit into what I call camp victim, meaning that something or someone has the power and control over our experience? Or do we want to look at camp take responsibility, which is taking responsibility for our choices and decisions that have created the very experience we have and the very life that we have? And when we live in camp take responsibility, we embrace the challenges of life and we embrace the adversities to grow and learn and continually be evolving into the best version of ourselves. And whether I work with men or whether I work with women and in my own life, I live and teach can't take responsibility, that we are a product of our choices and decisions versus being a victim of our circumstances. When we live in camp victim, we run away from life, we stay trapped in our hurt, and we stay trapped in anger. And then we are disempowered and unable to make any changes in our life because we've given the power and control away to people and circumstances in our life. And the reason that I see hypergamy as a camp victim ideology is because of how men are easily influenced by this concept in the red pill community and how they get stuck in their anger. And what I know and what I teach about anger is that anger is always an expression of being a victim. Anger is always an expression of being a victim. And what I mean by victim is more victim mentality, our human propensity to give away our control and power to the people, things, and circumstances in our lives, to have the perspective that our experience in life happens to us. And so whenever there is anger, it equals victim. And that's a good thing to know. So as I often say, I'm a human, not a machine. So when I feel angry, that is my number one benchmark to know that I am stuck in victim, and that whatever I'm experiencing, whether that's in my marriage or in my career or with my family members, that if I am angry, that's a wake up call to me to say, Karen, you're stuck in victim. You're seeing this from a perspective that this is happening to you. So what I have to do then to get back over into camp take responsibility is to slow down and look at, what are my choices and decisions that have created the very experience that I am having right now? Because then that empowers me to have a path forward. So I am here, and my channel is meant to empower people, to give you the option to live from camp take responsibility. That instead of giving our power and control away to other people, to be able to look within ourselves to say, what are my choices and decisions that have led me to this very experience today? Because it's from that perspective, again, that we can embrace the challenges, embrace the adversities to grow and learn. And that's the whole purpose of my message for men and my message for women is that I don't want men stuck in being a victim to women and hating women and seeing women as the enemy, just as much as I don't want women to sit and hating men and seeing men as the enemy. The only way out of those two perspectives is to live in camp, take responsibility, and embrace life for what it is, which is a series of ups and downs and a series of challenges and tests that push us to grow and learn and become the best version of ourselves. So if hypergamy is a victim concept that makes men powerless to women, that's not a healthy place to be. Good men have to, and just men in general, need to look at, and it doesn't make how women treat men, it doesn't make it right or okay. But good men have to look at what is the weakness in me, or what are the limitations in me that allow me to give my power and control away to women so that I can take that power and control back and be strong and confident in myself. I saw a comment this week from a man that said something along the lines, I'm paraphrasing here, but something along the lines that, well, what you speak about and women emasculating is true, but it's a man being weak that he can't stand up to his wife. He has to look at that, and that's true. But what good men and men in general need to know about emasculation is that it works, and it is most effective on good men because good men are good natured. They see all the wonderful things about their wife and the women in their life, and the emasculation actually works to rob them of their power and control. But once a man can see that and understand that, then it's up to him to make different choices and learn how to navigate those dynamics in order to grow and learn and become stronger in himself. And hypergamy, and seeing that women always marry up and they're always looking for the next partner that's going to be a higher status, social status than the man that they are with currently, puts men in a position of, well, there's nothing I can do, and keeps them stuck in that victim mentality. And it's really interesting to me in the red pill community, and the different influencers in the red pill community, when they have women on their shows, it's very clear to me that they bring like the lowest hanging fruit of women onto their shows, women that are not representative, in my opinion, not representative of the average day to day, everyday woman. Or what I am here and the people I'm speaking to and representative of who I am is very much just the average everyday people that represent just the common normal um issues and challenges that we face in relationships and marriage. And so it's interesting to me how some of these shows will bring on these women, and not judging them or making them wrong and bad, but are a little trashier kind of bimbos. Again, not representative of your day-to-day woman that you're seeing, out at the grocery store, or in different public places, to reinforce the different ideologies that the red pill space speaks about. And that's what we do when we live in our set of beliefs and we're not willing to question and look at things from a different perspective. We find information, it's called confirmation bias. We find information to solidify and reinforce the beliefs that we already have, and we live in cognitive dissonance of what we believe and unable to see it from another perspective, that things might be different than how we perceive them. So, from my perspective, and working with women, in a study I want to share, I do not see hypergamy as a common practice amongst women. And when we're talking about just the average day to day women, I do not see hypergamy taking place. What I see more, and not to say that there are not women out there who absolutely are gold diggers, are looking for men of a higher status, are looking for men in a higher socioeconomic status than where they are. Does that happen? Absolutely. So please don't misunderstand me. Yes, it happens. But I do not think that that is the dominant strategy for women to marry and to get into relationships. And it's not representative of the average everyday person. So I first want to just share a study that was done in England by Gregory Clark and Neil Cummins. And it was a study done on marriage in England between 1837 and 2021. So it's a very long study. And I'm just going to just share a little bit of it. That states that it is widely believed that women value social status and marital partners more than men do, leading to female marital hypergamy. And using evidence from more than 33 million marriages and 67 million births in England and Wales between 1837 and 2021, we show that there was never within this era any period of significant hypergamous marriage by women, that the average status of women's fathers was always close to that of their husbands' fathers. And consistent with this, there was no differential tendency in England of men and women to marry by social status. However, the evidence is of strong symmetry in marital behaviors, but between men and women throughout. Strong symmetry. So what does that mean? Strong symmetry, or just symmetry in relationships, mean that relationships generally develop because it is felt either consciously or unconsciously that such similarities are important in the process of developing relatedness, mutuality, bondedness, stability, and so forth. And that is more my experience, again, in working with hundreds of women, and then just also me personally, and seeing women just in my personal life, is that we actually tend to choose partners, and I see this amongst men and women. We choose partners of a similar social background, of a similar lifestyle, of similar commonalities that we share. And that was very much my experience with my husband. My husband and I met in my late 20s, his early 30s. And we were in a very similar spot in our lives. We were both a bit of a mess emotionally, and where we were in our life. We both worked in the restaurant industry. We ran around in a similar circle of friends. And so we were very much compatible in terms of our status and our social status. And when I think of the women I have worked with, I see that through and through, of course, with some exceptions of women that married up, but more so I see women marrying laterally. And I actually see quite a bit of women mating and marrying down, or getting in relationships with men who I hear this so much from women of, he had so much potential. I saw so much potential in him. He didn't have a job, or he had a very low paying job, but I believed in his potential, because as women, we tend to want men that we see as a project that we can fix and shape and mold and change into who we want them to be. The bigger truth, in my experience of working with women and being in relationships with women and being a woman, is even if we pick a man who makes more money, is more successful, or we pick a man that is lateral to us, and of course, this fits into the picking down, is as women, we will always choose a man that we see a flaw or a shortcoming in, that we can exploit and point the finger out and blame them for that shortcoming or flaw of why the relationship isn't working, didn't work, why we are unhappy, and always have a back door from the relationship. That is the truth of what I see, and how women choose men, whether we are choosing laterally or choosing up or choosing down. We want a man with a flaw that we can exploit and use against them. So I recently had a client who I have worked with for on and off through different stages of her life. And she recently got into a new relationship with a very, very successful man. She is also successful and has quite a bit of financial wealth built up. And he had a challenge in his life, a challenge with his family and a personal habit that he struggled with. And I know, and she knows in our work together, she chose him on purpose for those flaws so that she could have a back door and not have to be all in. So women will choose men who struggle with jobs. They'll choose men who struggle with drinking, potentially struggle with things like porn, have broken families, or have a challenging past with an ex-wife. Um, some flaw, some shortcoming that we can use to exploit, take the power and control in the relationship, and then use it against them when we are not happy. That, from my perspective, is the truth. And so, why I like to teach from this perspective rather than these nuanced, complicated psychological terms, and different ways of explaining our problems and issues in life, is something that I have learned is that truth is simple. Truth is very simple. And the more nuanced and complicated a concept becomes, and then we make it, the further away it is from truth. So when I see how hypergamy is explained in a central component of the red pill community, it is so nuanced and there's so many different theories wrapped up into it that lets me know, not getting into the weeds of it, that it is not truth because it is so complicated and nuanced and it disempowers men. Truth is very simple. So I want to get into a little bit more now of how women choose men or why women leave marriages, coming back to our human pursuit of happiness. That women do not make choices in men based on biological or social factors and making these strategic mating choices. That's not where we choose from. It's our human pursuit of happiness, of who we think is going to give us those romantic feelings of love and feeling wanted and taken care of, that we think is going to fill the emptiness that we have within ourselves. As women, we make choices emotionally and we make choices in life, including the men that we choose, from a place of who is going to make, who we believe is going to make us happy. And that's really what I want women to think about today and understand. I changed my sign behind me and it says, your husband cannot make you happy. So I call myself the happiness expert because really the foundation of everything that I teach is coming from this understanding of our human experience and our pursuit of happiness. And the truth that we all know is that no one and no thing can make us happy. And I also teach no one and no thing can make us unhappy. But I want to focus on the first part today. And even though we know no one and no thing can make us happy, as humans, we live in a constant pursuit of looking for people and things to make us happy. And quite like the fundamental truth is, as humans, we don't understand happiness. I saw a video not too long ago of a woman talking about what's the one thing that all 8 billion people have in common on this planet, is that we all continue to be in the pursuit of happiness, going after the job, the um, relationships, the accomplishments, the achievements in life that we think are going to make us fulfilled and give us meaning and purpose. And the reason that all 8 billion people in general are in the pursuit of happiness is because we don't understand it and we haven't found it. And it's because we are looking in all the wrong places and we don't understand what happiness is, which is why I teach that happiness and my experience of happiness and what I teach others and what my mentor has taught me is that happiness is having a healthy relationship with ourselves. It's an experience of accepting who we are and the very life that we have and not living in a place of lack or want and thinking that there's something missing or someone missing in our lives that we think if we had would somehow make us fulfilled, content, and have meaning and purpose. And the truth is, no one and no thing can make us happy, and no one and no thing can give us that sense of fulfillment and heal that emptiness that we have within us as humans. That I am the only person, you are the only person that can make you happy. And happiness is an internal experience that, again, comes from that place of having a healthy relationship with yourself. But where we live as humans, and speaking also just for us as women, where we live is a constant pursuit of the next thing, the next person, the next achievement, the next accomplishment, looking to fill that void and emptiness that we have as humans. And it never works. It's like we're a bucket with holes in it and everything leaks out. And then we are faced with our emptiness again. So when we think of married women leaving their husbands and looking for another man, it isn't coming from a place of hypergamy. It's coming from a place of being unhappy. That's probably one of the first things that men hear in their marriage when their wife is wanting a way out of the marriage, but not wanting to take responsibility and not make a choice and wanting to drag it out and make the man the bad guy. The first thing that men often hear, and I'm guilty of this in my previous relationships, and my husband and I went through a bit of this before we were married. The first thing men hear from women is, I'm unhappy. I'm unhappy in the relationship. I'm not happy with you. This is making me unhappy. And that's often the first thing that men hear, followed by, when that doesn't work, to make the man the bad guy and push him to leave, the next thing a man will hear is, I don't think I love you anymore, or I'm not in love with you anymore. And where that is stemming from is a woman's unhappiness. And because as women, we live in camp victim of looking to the people and things outside of us that we think are making us unhappy, the biggest person we project our unhappiness onto is our husbands and thinking they're responsible for our unhappiness. But our happiness is an internal experience and our unhappiness is an internal experience. So when a woman leaves her marriage or cheats or finds another man, it's not from a place of, often, not saying it doesn't happen, but most likely and most common, it's not from a place of, this man is superior to my husband, or I think the phrase, a higher value man than my husband. No, she's trapped in her illusion of in fantasy, thinking this man is somehow going to make her feel those romantic feelings of love and fill that emptiness within her. That's what she's running after and leaving her marriage or having an affair or considering leaving. It stems from her human unhappiness and emptiness and void that she's constantly looking to fill, which is just our human nature. And so, what we all have to understand and what women need to understand is that the only person that can fill that emptiness is ourselves. And that happens by learning to build a healthy relationship with ourselves and feel good about who we are. That there is no man out there, not your husband and not any other man, not even the most perfect man you could imagine in your fantasy, that will ever make you happy. Because ultimately, when we don't have a healthy relationship with ourselves, when we are um, living in that emptiness and void, searching for someone or something else to fill it. I lost my train of thought. I had somewhere specific. You guys got to see my humanness. I had a specific place I was going and I lost my train of thought there. But what we have to know is that unhappiness, I'm just going to start from a new angle. That unhappiness is coming from us. It's not the conditions or circumstances in our lives. It's not our husbands. It's how we feel about ourselves that no one is ever going to change. And that's why we see women get into a new relationship. They have the honeymoon phase for a little bit, they're happy for a little bit, and then they think that relationship is making them unhappy because we haven't figured out that it's actually stemming from our own unhappiness and our own relationship with ourselves. And one of the first things that I work with women on is looking at, we're the common denominator. That when we look at our failed relationships with men and we look at our unhappiness, we have to see the one constant across the board is ourselves. And so is it the men or is it us? Thinking it's the men is living in camp victim and giving our power and control away. Camp take responsibility is, I'm the problem. And the root of our problem in relationships with men, again, is our own unhappiness and never having learned to fill that void and emptiness with ourselves. When we do, then we see and we feel good about ourselves. Then we see the good things in our husband. We see the good things in our marriage. And it's only from that place that we can ever be happy in a relationship and ever be happy with a man. So getting into, as I always like to do, the solution. So when we live in camp take responsibility, when we see truth, even when it's a hard pill to swallow, there is always a solution. So most men that I talk to, and again, my message and who I work with are the day-to-day people, day-to-day men and women who still love each other, but struggle with the issues that I talk about on my channel and in my videos behind closed doors. And they haven't found a solution out to have a constructive, healthy relationship, but they still love each other. There's still a connection. Things are not too far gone. That's who I'm talking to. And so when I talk to the men who reach out to me and struggle with the things I talk about, like withholding, emasculation, always feeling that they're wrong, their wives having their walls up, they still, for the most part, if things are not too far gone, adore their wives and want a way to make it work. And so, what I teach good men, because most want to stay, not saying all, but most want to stay. They want to find a way to make it work. That is my most common experience in talking with hundreds of men and working with hundreds of men and women over the years. The solution, because the fun, when we live in camp take responsibility, the only solution is ourselves. Because the truth is, we only have control to change ourselves. And I never know what a relationship can be. And this was my experience in my marriage. I can never know what a relationship can be until I'm willing to change and take 100% responsibility for my experience, regardless of if my partner changes or not. That's all we have control over. That's just a truth of life, that is all we have control over. So I teach men, once they I pull the curtain back and they see what's been going on that they haven't been able to see, that they've been blind to, then it's up to a man to take responsibility of not for his wife, for himself, so that he can heal the hurt and heal the weakness and heal what's happened in his marriage and what his wife has done to him through the emasculation. Is the only way to heal that is to look at what is it in me? What's the limitation in me that I was blinded and allowed myself to give my power away to my wife and have her treat me this way? Because that's what he has control and power to change for himself, to regain his sense of being a man, to regain his strength and confidence. And that's what I teach men to do, is to look at their wife as their greatest teacher, to grow and learn and find their strength and confidence and continue to evolve into the best version of who they are. And what I teach women is to look at themselves as the problem, to wake up to their destructive habits and behaviors in their marriage and in relationships with men, and to recognize that that is stemming from our own unhappiness, our own hate of ourselves, our own dislike of who we are, that we don't want to be exposed for, haven't had a way to expose that to ourselves because we've lived in camp victim, going to therapy and looking at our past, looking at our relationships with our dads, looking at our relationships with our moms, looking at our relationships with men, which keeps us in victim. There's no ability to change. So a woman has to be able to look at the relationship she has with herself and her own choices and decisions as an adult, independent of external circumstances and factors, but her own choices and decisions of why she is unhappy and why she feels bad about herself, why she doesn't like herself, that is her own doing. Because that's the only way we can change. I spent years trapped in therapy, which is to me a victim ideology, trying to understand myself through my relationship with my dad, my parents, which, by the way, I have a wonderful, wonderful, good man of a dad who I appreciate very much now. But because I lived in camp victim, looking outside of myself to explain my issues and problems, I was disempowered and I couldn't change. So I just went around in circles in therapy, which is what most women watching have experienced and what most men watch women do. And some men get stuck in as well, as we go around in circle, because it's a camp victim ideology. So both of my solutions for men and women, they're different, but they stem from the same place of having to see ourselves as the problem, because that's the only way to take responsibility and change and live, and can't take responsibility. So for those interested, I do have a course for women. It's called the Happiness Program, because that's what we have to look at to solve our issues and challenges in our marriage and our life, is our own unhappiness and learning to be happy within ourselves, meaning having a healthy relationship with ourselves, which comes from learning to be in control of our emotional state and learning to make choices and decisions in life that shape our character and integrity, to feel good about who we are and to value ourselves. And then I have a course for men called the Marriage Rescue Course for Good Men Only, that teaches men how to take back the power they've unknowingly given away to their wife and rebuild their strength and confidence as a man, so that they can navigate the relationship with their wife from a healthy, constructive way, or be empowered to make the choice to leave if that's the best decision for them. So one last piece, and having talked about that, that's coming back to me that I want to talk about, is that we have to look at our intention to understand if we are being a victim or not. If our intention and our choice is to leave our marriage or to not be in relationships with women, and looking at things like the MGTOW movement, we have to look at our intention behind it. If it's from a place of, I have learned that this is not a healthy place for me to be, I understand my part and role, It's just, this isn't what I want to continue to be in. And I'm going to make a different choice to leave, or I'm going to make a choice to not be in relationships with women because I've gone down this path and it's not the experience I want for myself in life. That's can't take responsibility. But if we make those choices from a place, and same goes for women wanting to leave their marriage, but that's a different perspective because as women, we have to look at what is the unhappiness in me that's creating my experience. But for men, if they leave their marriage or they go MGTOW from a place of being angry and hurt by women, and feeling hurt and angry about divorce laws being biased against men, which they are, and feeling the system is rigged against them. So screw it. I'm going this direction. That's going to come from a place of camp victim because we're not embracing those realities of life to grow and learn. There are many, many, many unfair things about life. Our job as humans in our pursuit of happiness and our pursuit of self-actualization is to embrace those unfair realities of life, to grow and learn from them and find our freedom within ourself by not giving our power and control away to systems, institutions, circumstances, and taking responsibility for our choices based on what's the experience that we want to have of life and what works for us and what doesn't, and making it from that making choices from that neutral place of living and can't take responsibility. So that's what I wanted to talk about with you guys today. And understanding hypergamy as a trap, because it keeps men in a place of being a victim. And when we are victims, we are trapped, we are stuck, and we are disempowered to be able to change. And then also helping women understand how we do choose relationships from a place of looking for men with a flaw, regardless of their social status, that we can point the finger out and blame for our unhappiness, and understanding that our unhappiness in our marriage and relationships with men is not stemming from men. It's stemming from within ourselves and the unhealthy relationship we have with ourselves that we have never learned to heal. And we have never learned to fill that void and emptiness with ourselves. So thank you guys so much for joining. I'm going to pull the chat up here just for a moment. So if you've got some questions, could put them in. There's a little bit of delay. So, oh yes, and please like the video if you haven't already. That helps it get out. And consider subscribing to my channel if this speaks to you. Uh, great topic, great discussion. Thank you very much. Oh, good question. John asks, what, and guys, I'm just looking at the bottom. It going up and and scrolling. It's just me here. But John asks, what is the strongest indicator of a relationship being too far gone? Is it all predicated upon the willingness to save the relationship? Yeah, good question. Too far gone is that there's not a willingness on both parts to make the relationship work. It's gotten to the point of total dysfunction where there's really not a connection anymore. You're not speaking anymore, and there's not a desire on either part to want to make it work and find a way forward. That's and I don't tend to work. I don't work with people where the relationship is too far gone unless they're looking to heal themselves and have a strong foundation underneath themselves if things are going to end. So we work from a little bit different angle. Um, but when I have in the past worked with people where it's too far gone, there's just continuous fighting or just total, not speaking at all to each other. Things are, we know what that looks like when it's there. It's just there's no point of return, and no real connection anymore is the simplest way that I can explain it. Oh, thank you, Caleb. That's very kind of you and thoughtful. Karen, thank you. You spoke a lot on the emasculation of men in your video on sex. For women who struggle with feeling too empty to give anything and have a hard time giving up control, what advice would you give them? Great question. And again, thank you so much for your generosity. Um, that they have to build a foundation. It's exactly what I was talking about today. What they have to do, what they have to look at is building a foundation within themselves to fill that emptiness. That when women feel they're so empty, they have nothing left to give, because that's how we feel. And that is what I talked about in that video on sex. Um, is that we feel burdened and resentful that we have to have sex because we feel like we're giving a part of ourselves away that we don't have to give because we are so empty. And the reason for that is that as women, we spend our lives, and this comes back to the pursuit of happiness, we spend our lives doing everything we think we need to do for others, powering through, running through life, never slowing down, giving ourselves any consideration. Essentially, we live as martyrs. And I don't mean that in a positive sense of the word, but we live as martyrs of doing, look at me. Oh, look at how much I do for everyone else. No one ever takes care of me. And we live in that sob story because we're not doing anything for ourselves. So the cool part about a woman working on her issues around sex and feeling that she has nothing to give, you don't need to work on sex. Don't work on sex. It makes it so much worse. I explained that in that video. We have to work on our relationship with ourselves of learning to do the things that show us that we are important to ourselves, from making integrous choices that show a level of high character to making sure we're making time for ourselves to do things that we love and enjoy that we have often disconnected from and stopped doing, making intentional time to fill our cup so that we have plenty to give to ourselves and plenty to give in our marriage and other relationships. So my advice is it starts with happiness. um, Oh, thank you, Evo. Thanks for your question. When will your updated free course for women be online? Good question. It's been in the making for a bit. And I'm actually in the process of my working with a new website developer and designer, because my website is so out of date. So that is coming very soon as well, probably within the next 2 months. I will have an updated course with that master course there, but I will have that free course available before then, and I will update you guys. My hope is actually potentially to get it recorded this afternoon, re-recorded. Um, yeah, I have a topic that interests me, and that is how women that grow up with an absent father, how does that affect her relationships and marriages? So again, coming from a can't take responsibility perspective, and what I had to get out of for myself is that as a grown-up adult woman, it is not our past. This is can't take responsibility perspective. And knowing these two perspectives gives us a choice. If this doesn't resonate with you, that's okay. But it's what resonated with me, and it's what effectively changed my life and transformed my marriage and my relationships with my family and across the board in my life. Is what I teach a woman is that as a woman, the experience you have in relationships as an adult has nothing to do with whether your dad was there or not, no matter what kind of dad you had. That it's our choices and decisions in our relationship with ourselves that determine our experience as adults in relationships. I know that's a very countercultural perspective, but thinking anytime we think and live in that belief system that it is our parents, it's our upbringing, is our past circumstances, even our past traumas, which another video for another time. I think that is a way overused word. But I'm not going to get into that right now. But that gives our power away. And as long as my dad being absent, which mine wasn't, but I hear that plenty from women, if they had an absent dad, has no effect on our relationships we have as adult women. It's our choices and decisions. Because if as long as it's a woman's dad being absent, and that's the reason for her unhealthy relationships in her adulthood, she will never be able to change it. because the truth is you cannot change the fact that your dad was absent when you were young. And so what I teach is a healthy perspective of that's life. The issues and challenges we go through, whether we're children or adults, are just a part of life. Does it make it fair? No, life's not fair. The Candace Owens had a response to an audience member in one of her recent talks that made me laugh. It still makes me laugh, where they asked her a question about something and within her wheelhouse of what she talks about, and she just looked at him and said, "I don't know. Life is hard. Get a helmet." That's what I feel we have to do to get away from this. It's my childhood, and trying to understand our past is understanding that keeps us really trapped. Life is unfair. Parents make mistakes. We aren't born into the, we're dealt the hand of cards we're dealt. Then it's up to me. Do I choose to grow and learn from that experience and see how it made me stronger and find the gifts in it? Or do I remain a victim and use that as an excuse and a scapegoat for why I am the way I am and the destructive choices and decisions I make and the kind of relationships I have? It's a choice. Which lens do I want to look out of in life and what empowers me? So that's my response to that. But I love that quote. Life is hard. Get a helmet. Uh just want to see if there's anything else. And I'm gonna wrap up. My husband and I are gonna go do a little shopping this afternoon, and we're gonna make some. We haven't decided yet what, but some sort of soup or chili for this cold weather we are having, and we're gonna enjoy the Chiefs game tonight. Um, yeah. So just seeing it with questions that are constructive. Yeah. Awesome. All right, guys. Oh, thank you. Seven Heel Star, Karen Seitz, and the Happy Wife School is a breath of fresh air. I've been binge watching your videos religiously. I hope to experience an accountable woman that is never privately abusive. Thanks so much for your kind words and kind comments. Guys, lots of good questions here. I can feel myself. I'm ready to wrap up. And like I said, I got some things to get to this afternoon. But thank you so much for joining me today. I'm glad it was a good discussion for you. Remember to like the video if you haven't. Consider subscribing. And I look forward to seeing you guys again very soon.